Alrighty, so we're going to be talking about the races of the world and what all of them have to bring to the table. And so, right now, we're going to start with pretty much the baseline, which is all of the people who kind of got left behind as the world started turning and things started moving. And that's what we typically consider the aboriginal or native or Pacific Islander type people, the people who were found by more industrious societies, and they said, "Hey, why don't you have a city yet, right? Why don't you have these many different inventions that we have? What did you do that was so great?" And these are people who are very often looked down on because they say, "Hey, obviously you can't be that smart because you didn't come up with all the stuff we did." But this is also the group that pretty much every race in the world started at. They started at this level. Everyone was this. And all the different variations and differences in race are layered on top of this fundamental core. And so it's very important to understand that they're good. They mastered their environment. It's that they had a strong community. Every single one of these places you look, their community is strong. They have their tribe of people, their group, and they are tightly interwoven in each other's lives, and they work together and do stuff together to make sure that everyone benefits. That's how they got through. That's how they made stuff happen. But besides that community level, which to remind you of what we talked about yesterday, 4 major lessons to learn: individuality, community, logic, and faith. None of these places are so devoted to logic, right? They reason, they have thoughts and ideas, but it's not a central part of their culture the same way it is in other places of the world. And they have faith. Absolutely. They have beliefs, stuff that directs them and guides them through their life. But it's not as all-encompassing as it is in other places of the world. And they care about themselves as individuals, of course, but not to the same degree as in other places of the world. Pretty much all they had was their nice tight-knit community. And even with that, the whole point, the whole strength of community is when you can grow it to more and more people. That's the power of community. And so they have very strong communities, but they're this big. And they never worked at growing them. And so with that, they're also a bit behind the rest of the world. At least parts of it, right? So in each one of these categories, in each 4 of their categories, they're fine. But they're not excelling in any of them. They're kind of like the jack of all trades, masters of none, right? And that's good in its own way. But it's not amazingly intriguing and stupendously fascinating, right? It's just average. These are literally the average. And this is not good or bad. It's average, right? And so if you value one of these 4 things more than any of the others, which almost every culture does, because there's something that they excel in, Everyone's going to measure themselves. They're going to measure the world based on the thing that they excel at, right? So whenever someone's really good at math, they're like, oh man, well, what's your best subject, huh? Right? I'm good at math. Are you good at math? No? Okay then. If you're good at running, then you're like, oh, can you run though? Are you fast? How fast are you? How far can you run? Like, these are the things we measure other people on, is the stuff that we're good at. And so, for these native, aboriginal, Pacific Islander type people, whatever you want to call them, different parts of the world, you call them different stuff. It's not that they're less. It's that they're average. It's that in the world, like I said, there's this idea that you can be an individual or part of a community. And it's a spectrum of where you are on it. They don't have that idea. They're just, both pretty moderately, and yeah, that's it. And then you have this idea of there's logic and there's faith, and you can you think of the world logically and it makes sense, or you can just say, hey, I don't have all the answers and I'm just going to take it on faith. And you could do either of those. Or you could just say, well, if it makes sense to me, it does, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. I'm not going to worry about it. And that's what they did. They took the middle path on every single issue. They're average. And when everyone is exceptional in one thing or another, it's easy to get jealous. It's easy to say, hey, this group of people is like having this crazy industrial revolution. Now they're up to the sky and past it too. Well, yeah, it's easy to get jealous of that. It's easy to be in awe of that. But are they any happier? Not really. You could say, oh, well, this group of people not only has a faith, but they have a faith that tells them every single way they should go on every single topic. It has all this theology about why you do this and why you do that, and about human nature and things you can learn about yourself and gain true, valuable wisdom. But are they any happier? Not really. That you have the people who are very much about understanding themselves as an individual, and they gain so much self-knowledge about how they work and how they operate, and they are able to have so much agency in the world where they can make things the way that they want them, and they can change the world for the better however they know how. And it's really cool how you can have one person make such an impact on the world, and it's something to be in awe of. But are they any happier? Not really. And you can have a community of people, and you can have this growing and widening sense of who's in your group, and you can say, oh man, look at all of the people on my side, and it feels so good to have that security, to say, hey, everyone is on my side and on my team, and I don't have to worry about all of these different issues and all this different stuff because they got my back. But are they any happier? Not really. It's that these first people, native people, aboriginal, whatever you want to call them, they took this middle path. And so they got middle results. And that's fine. And there's nothing wrong with that. Because they had their technological innovations. The Aboriginal people of, Australia. They took the literal, scariest, most dangerous part of the entire world, and they conquered it. not through massive technological innovations like it took the Europeans in order to even stay there and even live there. No. They just understood the land that much and worked so hard and developed so many techniques and passed them on word of mouth for centuries, millennia. That's how they tamed that landscape. And that's not anything small. That's big. So you're going to look down on them because they don't have a toaster? Who cares? But at the same way, you can't tell me that all the technology we have today makes life easier. Of course it does. It makes everything easier. It makes living life so much easier. And so I bet you a lot of them wish that their ancestors came up with the amazing inventions that they know about today. But they didn't. And there's nothing wrong with that. The whole point of the world and all the different people in the world is that no one person has to be everything. No one person, no one group has to be the best at everything. And it's important to talk about these people first, because they are resoundingly looked down upon by every group that we're going to talk about. That it's this kind of simplicity of saying, we're going to be average on everything. We're going to do all four of these things to a moderate degree. Split the difference. That you have this technological innovation, sure. Like, for example, in South America, they developed so many different types of corn and potatoes that literally the entire world is eating the food they invented. From, Europe to China to Africa. Everywhere. Absolutely everywhere is eating this food. And so they had an amazing contribution to the world. The entire world is still alive and able to support the type of size of people that they have, precisely because they didn't try to make their environment completely different. They didn't try to excel in their own right. They didn't try to be the best. They just took step after step after step, and look at what they made. Look at what they created that lasts forever. They were geniuses at cultivating crops, and everyone in the world should thank them for that. Do they have a religion that will last the test of time? No, they don't. In fact, most of South America, the aboriginal culture is pretty much gone. Do they have a mindset of being an individual that is going to raise them to new and higher heights? No. No, they didn't have that. They just worked at it for generations, for a long time. And everyone had their lot, and they stuck to it. They didn't have great and amazing individuals that people would tell stories about for generations to come. They had their famous people, sure, and they had their influential people, sure, but it's not quite the same. And yeah, we know about the Mayan calendar and how genius they were in predicting astrological events. But at the same time, they sacrificed the winners of their sports. And so the Mayan people that exist today, right? The people whose ancestors were Mayan, they're short. They're pretty short. And yeah, it was not very logical to do that. There's a lot of bad that comes with this mindset. Sure. But we couldn't live without it. That without those people, half of us wouldn't even be here. Because we wouldn't even have enough food for all of it. Because between tomatoes and potatoes and corn, what percentage of our diet is that? What percentage of our life do we owe to these aboriginal people? And the Pacific Islander people, they legit went on ships back before they had ships. Like, they were the first ones to go across the massive ocean and actually trade with different people across the world. And that is an amazing feat. And yeah, now that we have, like, battleships and stuff, it's easy to look back at those people and say, hey, whatever. But not whatever. The world wouldn't be what it is today without them. It's all connected. Every single person on this planet is connected. And there's this chain of events that if you take a single group of people out of it, the whole world gets worse. And this is no exception. These people are no exception. They have changed and grew their environment to a degree that is astounding. And so just because they're not excelling on any four of these metrics does not mean that they are irrelevant. And that is why we're talking about them first. First people first, yeah? Because they set the stage very nicely. That just because they aren't the best in the world at a thing does not mean that their diligence and hard work is not influential. They were very influential. The entire world has to thank them. Because they made it happen. They did amazing things, all on their own. They didn't have the benefits of excelling in any of these four that drove their society to new heights and becoming stupendously amazing at a few things. They didn't have that. What they did have was some hard, honest work with some smart, intuitive actions that spanned many generations. And that's exactly what we needed. And they were able to do it. And so, we should thank them. We should appreciate them. And we should learn from them, too. And now, now we're gonna go into the next one. Gonna keep on going and see who else we have to thank and who else we have to appreciate.